gaming industry has been grappling with an ongoing issue that many players have noticed, but until now, only few have actually understood. Why do so many female characters in modern gaming have this masculine facial structure, this jawline that looks like a dude, and everywhere you look, even in massive major AAA games, it seems to appear? What's the deal with that? Well, I got an anonymous message from somebody in the industry looking to expose the reality behind the fabled manjaw and why it keeps happening. What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Smash JT. The other day, I got a message from somebody looking to expose the inner workings of the manjaw, this manjaw that continues to appear. And while many people initially, including myself, were looking at the developers and saying, oh, these developers are woke and they're trying to inject some sort of androgynous looking person into these games and to see themselves, that's the real reason for it. Potentially, yes. But if you dig deeper, it's actually Epic Games and Unreal Engine, and the default characters that they give these developers aren't very, we'll just say, appealing to the feminine form. Hit that subscribe, give me a like, and check out smashjt.com for the full article breaking down the manjaw exposed and why women in games are looking like dudes and how it's actually coming from Epic Games. And to be clear, this video is focusing on Metahuman and the Unreal Engine from Epic Games. I know there are a tremendous amount of AAA titles out there that don't use Unreal Engine or use their own proprietary game engines when they put it together. So take this all with a grain of salt as far as the overall jaw issue is, but at the same time, if it's happening with Metahuman and Unreal Engine, there's a high chance and high likelihood that this could also be happening at other studios that have their own engines they're using as well.
It's just the ugliest thing you've ever seen, I think. So let's just undo that. I'll stick with her, but this really shows you just how god-awful some of these, I don't know what you want to call it. It's like the ideology infested tool. I don't have any of these issues when I create a male character. I can create male characters all day and they look great, but it takes forever to make someone look like this. And this is what they want it to look like instead. Like, what the hell is this? This is disgusting.
In a scathing expose, a video has been shared with me privately, and I have been given the okay to share this information publicly about a developer being very frustrated with how a tool generates female models by default. Models that, rather than appearing naturally feminine, instead start off looking like dudes. This developer, who asked me to remain anonymous, has also provided a video with proof of their findings and explained in full detail about Unreal's Metahuman tool and how it is undeniably cutting edge when it comes to fidelity, with every pore, blemish, and skin reflection being rendered in stunning detail. But, and this is a very big but, as opposed to the models on the women that are anything but that, this comes at the cost of the base models being fundamentally unattractive and unappealing based off of what is given to these artists to begin with.
I thought this was worth showing. This is the Metahuman tool that Unreal Engine provides for creating realistic characters. And here's a woman I created recently, and I'm quite happy with her, but it's like there's a lot of detail, and I think the shape is really nice, looks very appealing and feminine, but you have to try, very hard to get her to look like this. I had to do what's called the mesh to Metahuman workflow, which is to import a custom mesh. You actually can't really create someone who looks like this from scratch using the characters they give you. They're actually a lot of them are actually quite ugly, I find. And so I have to use an alternate workflow to get in a different looking mesh to start with, and then I can sculpt it to the way I want it.
The starting point for these female characters is unnaturally androgynous, and it takes a tremendous amount of effort on the wireframing of the face to contort it to look more like a woman. That right there is the problem with everything. It all requires extensive tweaking and significant efforts from the artists themselves just to achieve a traditionally feminine look. I can think of three different reasons why this is happening. One, they're just straight up lazy developers, or two, they're just untalented and don't know how to do it and work it to make it look more feminine, so they just stick with the default option. Or three, the artists themselves is straight up androgynous themselves and they want to see themselves in the game that they're making. But typically, what's transpiring here for this manjaw is one of those three things is happening, which is why it continues to perpetuate itself in all of gaming.
And so I have to use an alternate workflow to get in a different looking mesh to start with, and then I can sculpt it to the way I want it. There's a funny little slider that they provide, which is basically to ignore the mesh that you use and to revert to using theirs, and it just shows you the total anti woman bias that's in tools like this, and that explains a lot. Like why is it that women look so ugly? And so like right now it's set to 1, which is using my mesh, and if I set it to 0 and using theirs, this is what they want to do.
And as you see in the video, one of the most striking features of this is the jawline and the facial structure of Metahuman's female models. The prominence of the jawline, high foreheads, and heavy set features read far more masculine when you're watching it. These features just aren't minor quirks. They require a considerable amount of work from the game artist to reshape it into something that would finally actually resemble what we would consider a woman. This is, according to my source, a very likely reason as to why we're seeing more and more female characters in AAA games come packed in with the now more infamous manjaw look, because the starting templates already lean heavily masculine to begin with, and regardless of the reason why the developer doesn't change it, the end result is it still happens. The problems don't stop at the face. Metahuman's approach to the female body is equally strange, and honestly even more extreme for the worse. As my source pointed out, the default models lack any kind of actual curvature, flat chests, non-existent hips, and unnaturally compressed proportions. Now, when you look at a game like Dragon Age the Veilguard and the character creator, you weren't even able to raise out the chest and make it look more like a woman. It was very limited with the options that they presented you in the creator character. And you look over at Epic Games' Unreal Engine and see what they provide the developers with, and it makes more sense. Everything comes together and you're like, okay, now I get it. Now I see where the problem is starting. If this is just simply a technical oversight or somehow some part of a much larger ideological push for inclusivity, we already know what Epic Games is going to talk about and how they respond to that. They'd say, oh, it's something along the lines of, we're trying to be more inclusive. This is how real people look in real life. That's why we made the models look generic and androgynous, because sure, when you go to Walmart, that's probably what you'll see there. So we make games that look like the people in Walmart. Why wouldn't we? Look, when I play a game, I don't want to see the people in Walmart in my game. I want to see more attractive characters, unless the game itself is trying to put itself in a Walmart. And if I'm going to be playing Walmart Simulator, I'm going to start questioning my life choices. There's a good reason why artists in animation, comics, and gaming stylize characters to emphasize certain features, whether it's sharper jawlines for heroic male leads or softer, more delicate facial features for feminine characters. We play games for escapism, not whatever the hell this program is defaulting to. And this developer themselves is a woman who is fed up with the woman looking like men in games. It's not just dudes that are frustrated with this. It's literally anybody that doesn't look androgynous or want to push an ideology on people. Anyone who's normal, looking at the situation for what it is realistic to say, yeah, that jawline looks like a dude. If realism was truly the goal with all of this, why do all the male characters still retain their broad shoulders, strong chins, and well-defined muscles? Why does inclusivity always seem to disproportionately affect female character designs? Do we even need a tinfoil hat on at this point when we're looking at this stuff to realize that the agenda that's being pushed is pretty obvious. The issue here, at least from my perspective, isn't just about aesthetics. It affects how games are perceived, how players connect with characters, and how even the industry's creative direction has taken a turn for the worse. If tools like this Metahuman always default to making women look androgynous or masculine, then all these studios that rely on them will intentionally or unintentionally, depending on the talent working there, push this slop of aesthetics directly onto the players. And we are seeing the end result in it with almost every single game we see come out right now, especially from the West. It's no wonder that we're seeing more games with unappealing female protagonists that fail to resonate with audiences. When character artists have to fight upstream against the grain, against the very tools that they're using to make a woman look like a woman, it's no surprise to anyone that we keep getting female characters who look like they were designed by a committee rather than artists with an eye for appeal. It all makes perfect sense now. At its core, it isn't just a minor technical issue, it's a philosophical one. Gaming has always been a blend about art and technology pushed together, and at the core of society at large since gaming's inception. But when the tools being provided to the artists are actively working against the artists themselves, it raises some serious concerns about the future of gaming. If Metahuman and Unreal Engine continue down this path, we're bound to see a future where all female characters have to conform to this flat, androgynous, and realistic look. Hell, some would even argue that we're already living in that very future right now. Game studios have lost their ability to creatively visualize what a female character looks like and be distinctive with appealing characters simply because their tools aren't allowing it, or their artists are too lazy or untalented to be able to do any better. Maybe it's a time issue. Maybe it's a mental issue. Maybe it's someone that's trying to push an ideology on someone. Whatever the reason is, the fact of the matter is, it keeps happening. And this program is at the center of all of it.
it's just it's just the ugliest thing you've ever seen, I think. So let's just undo that. I'll stick with her, but this really shows you just how god awful some of these I don't know what you want to call it. It's like the ideology infested tool. It's I don't have any of these issues when I create a male character. I can create male characters all day and they look great, but it takes forever to make someone look like this. And this is what they want it to look like instead.
The developer who reached out to me provided me with some pretty compelling evidence as to what is transpiring here. And as you've seen overlaid on this, the video that they sent me is truth enough for everyone to see. In an industry where aesthetics matter and where art should be free from ideological constraints, this issue deserves more attention. It's time for Epic Games to answer to all gamers. Why do the default female models all look like dudes? And why game developers will have to fight so damn hard just to get femininity back into gaming where, I don't know, women themselves actually want to see the characters look like women. It's not just dudes that are saying, hey, this is kind of weird. Why does it keep happening? Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Shout out to the anonymous tipster developer that sent this information to me. It explains so much of what people were wondering about, why this was happening, and why it's not necessarily the developers at these AAA companies' fault, because sometimes it might just be a time crunch that they have to push these characters through instead of effort and talent to get them to that point at the end of the day. But then that brings up the whole DEI question, and maybe these developers just aren't talented enough to be doing the job they were hired for in the first place. If you guys appreciate what I'm doing, hit that join button. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, you stay smashing. Smash,